Another edition of the Magic Latest podcast where we discuss everything Orlando Magic basketball. I'm your host, Jalon Dixon, and today we are going to be discussing yesterday's victory over the Miami Heat in the season opener for the Orlando Magic, where the Orlando Magic trio went completely off. But before we get into that, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily Orlando Magic content. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for getting us over the 600 subscriber mark. And with that being said, remember to hit that post notification bell so you always know when we're dropping new videos. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get right into today's episode. Talking about the big dub, 125 to 121 at the crib. And the Orlando Magic trio of Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Desmond Bane showed up and showed out in their first official game as a group. Each scoring over 20 points in this game, combining for 70 points as a group. 125 points. Last season, the Orlando Magic only scored 125 or more points 3 times last season. They already did it once, and we're only 1 game in? Come on now. That's already insane as it is for what this Orlando Magic offense is trying to do moving forward. This trio as a group came out firing. I think one of the most impressive things about this game starts with Paulo Banchero. Paulo Banchero had a really rough first half. Single digits through the first half, and Franz Wagner was carrying the way. I believe he went into halftime with like 14 points or something like that, and was kind of leading the charge for this Orlando Magic offense while Paulo Banchero couldn't seem to get any real rhythm. Paulo was solid on the boards in the first half and picked up in the second half, finished the game with 24 and 11, but just could not seem to see the ball go through the hoop in the early going. Now, in the second half, momentum started to pick up. He finished the game getting to the line 12 times. Now, he left 3 of them things on the table, but 12 times. I've told you guys all offseason, if this Orlando Magic team can get 20 combined, 18 to 20, 22 combined free throw attempts from the duo of Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner, they're going to be in a special place. Well, they combined for 18, and if you throw in Desmond Bane, they combined for 24 free throw attempts between those 3 combined. They went 19 of 24 as a group. Oh, great progression for this offensive unit. Franz Wagner, as I mentioned beforehand, holding down the fort in the first half. Desmond Bane, I said this last episode, I wouldn't be surprised. In my parlay pick, I said Desmond Bane's going to probably hit his first 2 3-point attempts within the first quarter and a half. And Lord and behold, he did exactly that. Now, the 3 ball was not falling as efficiently after that. Only hit 1 more 3 after the first half. But nonetheless, he was getting that up. He got 6 3-point attempts up, knocked down 3 of them, 50% from the field, from beyond the arc. Got to be happy with that. And that group as a whole just kind of took over offensively. Now, this Miami Heat team was much scrappier than we would have given them credit going into the game without Tyler Hero from an offensive standpoint. They got a lot of production from newcomer Norman Powell, who led the team with 28 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and really productive game from Davion Mitchell. 16 points, 12 assists. Obviously was very effective on the defensive end, was able to not necessarily hold Desmond Bane in check. Obviously, he got over that 20-point mark, but he was a big influence on why Desmond Bane was having such tough looks from beyond the arc in the second half, and that adjustment alone was one of the things that kind of helped slow down the 3-point shooting of the Orlando Magic. But even with the fact that the Miami Heat had 5 players finish in double figures, 4 starters have double figures, Bam Adebayo, 15 points, 12 rebounds, nothing super crazy, and more particularly, 4 of 13 from the field. If you can hold Bam Adebayo to 4 of 13 from the field, and you're relying on that backcourt to stuff the stat sheet on a regular basis, the Miami Heat aren't going to win too many games because they need their superstar center to be able to step up in a real way, especially given the fact that Khalil Ware is still somebody that's in the developmental stage. So outside of Bam Adebayo, they're still kind of thin at the center position right now. Going back to what the Orlando Magic did with that trio, that group had a very special rhythm about themselves, especially in the pick and roll, creating 3-point opportunities for Desmond Bane. And I said it last episode. I'm glad I got to see it in actual film in this game. The overall commitment to trying to get Desmond Bane to seek out his shot attempts. Desmond Bane led all players on the Orlando Magic with 18 shot attempts. Now, Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner were not that far behind them, 17 shot attempts per. But The mere fact that in the first game of the season, you heavily feature Desmond Bain as an offensive option. You get him 6 3-point shot attempts. He gets to the line 6 times, goes 6 of 6 from the free throw line. That's exactly what this Orlando Magic offense is going to need. We know what Paolo can do. We know what Franz can do. We know that Franz even has another gear he can get to as a ball handler. But seeing how Desmond Bain can affect the game as a floor spacer, you have to figure out what you have in Desmond Bain early and often. And I think the Orlando Magic got a really good glimpse of that in this first game. Let's talk about Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs came into the game listed as questionable, and there was a high probability that if he was going to play, he was going to play on limited minutes, and the question was whether or not he'd start and how long he'd play. Well, he did end up starting. He did end up starting in the starting five at opening tip. Only played 16 minutes, but in those 16 minutes, hyper efficient basketball. 14 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 6 of 7 from the field, 2 of 3 from the free throw line, from beyond the arc, along with 2 steals, and was the most productive player on the team from a plus minus standpoint at plus 15. That's the heart and the soul of this Orlando Magic team. They say it in the post game. They've said it throughout training camp. When Jalen Suggs is healthy and he's effective, it just creates a completely different aura around this Orlando Magic team. One of the things that Desmond Bain said in the presser right after, before going to the locker room, he was talking about having Jalen Suggs in that backcourt with him and understanding how important he is as a three-point shooter, and more particularly as a point of attack defender who can take on the best perimeter offensive creator on the other side. It makes Desmond's job that much easier because, one, he doesn't have to exert as much energy on the defensive end, but number two, it also allows him to be that much more aggressive as an offensive player because he knows he can conserve his energy for going to go get buckets, right? So Jalen Suggs, 16 minutes, 14 points. And again, that 3 balls coming along, 2 of 3 from beyond the arc. That's going to be the biggest question for Jalen Suggs this season. We know the defense is going to translate. Even 80% of Jalen Suggs is going to be at least a second-team All-NBA caliber defender on his worst day. But as a three-point shooter for a season and a half, dating back to 2 years ago and a portion of last season, the 37 to 40% knockdown three-point shooter that Jalen Suggs, it looked like it was starting to actualize itself. The question is now, coming off of an injury-riddled season last year and starting the season this year on a pitch count, is that 37+% three-point shooting marksmanship still going to translate? If he's a knockdown three-point shooter and Desmond Bain's a knockdown three-point shooter, and we're going to talk about Tristan Da Silva in a minute too, who was also a big contributor off the bench. If those guys are all knockdown three-point shooters, and I'm not talking about everybody having to be 40%. They don't all have to be 40% from beyond the arc. But if you can have a handful of guys that you can consider as marksmen from beyond the arc, that changes the dynamic for this Orlando Magic team because they didn't have anybody outside of Jalen Suggs to be that guy last year. And again, they only had him minimally throughout the majority of the year, especially in the late run towards the playoffs before they end up running into the Boston Celtics, right? So Jalen Suggs' presence is so important. And we said before opening tip, I don't know if it was last episode or the episode prior, that even Jalen Suggs on a pitch count is better than not seeing him at all, right? And the reason for that is because you want to see what this group, right? I discussed all that stuff with the Magic Trio beforehand, but Jalen Suggs is a very integral part of that as well. And Wendell Carter Jr. had himself a game, by the way. It won't show up in the stat sheet, 9 points, 8 rebounds, but like he had some big time rebounds in a really clutch situation. 5 offensive rebounds, helped create a really good set of like offensive opportunities, 1 steal, 1 block. He and Jalen Suggs were like high energy, high effort guys on the defensive end for the Orlando Magic, and like that's really what they need. That's all they need. Paolo, Franz, Desmond can score. Can you get defensive consistency around the rim and on the perimeter from your 2 go-to defensive guys? Suggs on the perimeter, Wendell Carter Jr. on the inside. I think it's not a coincidence that Wendell Carter Jr. might have not had the craziest offensive game, but he held Bam Adebayo absolutely in check defensively in this game. And that's what they need. That's all they've ever really needed from Wendell Carter. The question is, can he be consistent? So Jalen Suggs, Wendell Carter Jr., big time defensively, and I think just the energy and presence of Jalen Suggs, even in 16 minutes, means a lot for this team. And I hope that Coach Mosley continues to kind of like edge his way through, right? Continue on the first 2-3 weeks of 15, 22 minutes max, right? Nothing crazy. Just make sure you have Suggs out on the floor, have his energy, permeate throughout the offense, have his energy permeate throughout that lineup, and allow everybody to kind of like feel said aura. Because again, he is the heartbeat of the team. In a weird way, he's somebody that is like arguably their most important player just from an energy perspective because the talent is all there on this team. But they need somebody who brings a certain level of like grit and hustle. And you saw some of those plays from Desmond Bane. It kind of seemed like it was a flow from some of the things we saw from Jalen Suggs, where it's like if he's going to get down and jump for a loose ball, throw it up forward for a fast break, well, then when I see something happen like that, like I need to be in the mix. And Desmond made a handful of hustle plays like that in the fourth quarter. So it just goes to show you how important Jalen Suggs really is to this team, despite the fact that he probably is like the fourth option on this squad. He still just matters so much. Let's talk about the bench. The bench wasn't super crazy. Jace Richardson didn't play. Noah Penda didn't play. Cool. Jet Howard didn't play as well. Jonathan Isaac, 7 minutes. I'm telling you, that's going to be a guy that's going to be floated around in the trade block pretty aggressively. Goga Batazde, 18 minutes, 8 points, 8 rebounds. I like the productivity. Anthony Black, 23 minutes, 7 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Not so effective as a scorer, 3 of 9 from the field, but I'm not mad at the fact that he was willing to get to the basket. That's one of the things that stood out to me the most was as a driver, he was aggressively looking for his shot, and you have to be okay with that because he's a guy that's still trying to get his rhythm when it comes to being a more aggressive offensive player. Obviously, he wasn't heavily featured a lot last year, and he's not going to see a whole lot of real on-ball opportunity this season with guys like Tyus Jones and Desmond Bane on the team now. Throw in Tyus Jones, wasn't the most effective player on the floor in this game. Had 3 assists, but was 0 for in 23 minutes. Missed all 3 of his 3-point attempts. Not the greatest. The guy who showed up for the bench, burying the lead here, but finally getting to that, is Tristan da Silva had himself a game. 18 minutes, 16 points, 5 of 8 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3, and got to the free throw line 4 times, knocked down 3 of them. Tristan da Silva, I told you guys, I said between Anthony Black and Tristan da Silva, those two guys, if they can be more aggressive, they're already wing size built with positional versatility to guard in space. They can be net positive defenders, and if that 3 ball comes along, you're going to have to watch out for this bench as well because they have the kind of athleticism and physicality to be able to guard multiple positions, keep up with teams in terms of being able to score, and you can place Anthony Black or Tristan da Silva in lineups next to some of the starters. You can put Tristan da Silva next to Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero, and Desmond Bane in a lineup. You can put Anthony Black in the similar lineup, or you can put Anthony Black in the lineup without Desmond Bane next to Jalen Suggs and have a full defensive backcourt. But now if Anthony Black's a knockdown 3-point shooter next to Jalen Suggs, who is also a knockdown 3-point shooter, look at how special your backcourt can be, even in minutes where you're mixing in the bench. Tristan da Silva showed that he, at least in the early going, is willing and open to stepping up to be that aggressive shot hunter off the bench. He and Anthony Black, combined for 17 shots off the bench. He far and away led as the 4th leading scorer on the Orlando Magic with 16 points. And I think his energy was warranted. He kept us afloat, particularly through that third quarter. I think was where he kind of started to show some real life there. And if I'm being honest with you, the Eurobasket stuff, it's hard to say so soon, right? But the Eurobasket stuff, mainly playing next to Franz, which I think is such a special element when you get to play with your teammate in a different environment with a different role, but one that still can translate really well to the actual league when you guys reconvene with your main team. I think Tristan's going to have a special year. Is he going to be 6th man of the year? I don't know. Right now, my 6th man of the year prediction for this team was Anthony Black or Tyus Jones. And honestly, right now, the leader for it is probably Tristan da Silva through 1 game. it'll be really interesting to see if this trend continues, at least for Tristan. You'd like to see things improve from an offensive perspective as far as Anthony Black and Tyus Jones, who basically didn't, you know, apply too much pressure for the Miami Heat defense in that regard. Watch Tristan closely. That's the best way to say it. Watch Tristan da Silva closely. He quietly may be a really special player for this team. I'm hoping he announces himself in a real way with like a special performance off the bench one of these days where he's like 5 of 6 from beyond the arc, just comes out smoking, guns ablazing, not scared to shoot the three ball. He has a couple of defensive possessions where he gets some really good stops and it just gets to, be a really positive punch off the bench for this Orlando Magic team. I know they trust him enough to be more aggressive as an offensive player, and I think that, again, the Eurobasket translation, again, one game, so I don't want to overblow it, but that Eurobasket bump, we've seen it for Franz Wagner the last couple of times that he's came from Eurobasket and then come back to the league, and it's like it almost seemed like he came back with a whole new wrinkle in his game. I just wouldn't be shocked if Tristan's in a very similar boat. Would it be him making an all-star leap the way we're expected for Franz this year? Probably not, right? Obviously. But could Tristan be a six-man of the year candidate for this team? Only time will tell. Again, I don't want to overblow things after one game, but at the same time, you gotta like what you saw, especially from him being aggressive as a three-point shooter. 5 3-point attempts was tied for second most on the team, along with Franz Wagner. You like to see that out of your backup small forward. Then we have something I think is kind of special, and it's talking about that three ball. The Orlando Magic were one of the best teams in the preseason as far as guarding the three-point line, and they were able to extend that to this first game of the regular season. They were able to hold the Miami Heat to 34% shooting from beyond the arc, 12 of 35 from beyond the arc. Now, the Orlando Magic were 40% from beyond the arc, 12 of 30. Again, you guys know the story. If you listen to the podcast enough, if you listen to plenty of people who have talked about the Orlando Magic all offseason, about the biggest hole in their game last year, and really the biggest hole in the game the last few years, is the three-point shooting. Last year, I know, the same narrative. 29% shooting from beyond the arc, one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the NBA, one of the worst team three-point shooting percentages in NBA history, blah, blah, blah. Again, totally understandable. 40% as a team. 40% as a team. And 30 is not even crazy volume. 30 is not even crazy volume. In today's NBA, that's probably middle of the pack at best in today's NBA, where teams are averaging 40, 45 three-point attempts per game, a la the Boston Celtics from last season or the Cleveland Cavaliers from last season, the Cleveland Cavaliers from 2 seasons ago, right? These exponentially high three-point shooting numbers make 30 seem kind of pedestrian, and it is. But if you're hitting 40% of them, it's much better than taking 35, 43s as an Orlando Magic team that's still trying to find their stroke from beyond the arc, and you're hitting 35%. Or you're hitting 32%. This was the worst three-point shooting team in the league last year, and their volume was about 32 to 34 attempts per game. So if you bump it down to 30, or if you keep it within the works of 30 to 35, but it's an efficient 30 to 35, that's big time. So not only were they able to guard the three ball at a high clip, which is something that's going to be really important for them, especially if you have to go through teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers, if you have to go through teams even like, dare I say, the New York Knicks. For those who didn't watch that game, the New York Knicks had a really special night against the Cleveland Cavaliers in their home opener. They got up 43s in this game. That Mike Brown offense, they're getting a lot more movement. They're taking a lot more three-point opportunities, and because of the fact that they're a really good rebounding team, they're going to get a lot of looks from beyond the arc off of second chance baskets. In that game between Cleveland and New York, Cleveland took 46 threes. New York took 40, right? So that's 10 more threes. 10 and, what's that? 10 and, that's 10 more threes by the Knicks, 16 more threes by the Cleveland Cavaliers. You're going to be going, two of the teams that are regarded as better than you going into this season in the Eastern Conference are going to be high volume 3-point shooting teams. So if you can guard the 3-point line at a high level, that's going to make you a danger, especially when we're talking about getting to the postseason, where you have to face this team minimum 4 times, maximum 7 times in order to get through a series. You're going to have to be able to wane that down because teams get hot all the time. But if you're able to shut the water off, especially for these teams that live and die by the 3, you now lean the favor in your direction because you're taking away their best offensive weapon. And while you are in a position to lean on something that you do best, which for Orlando is their physicality around the rim, a la the fact that they got to the free throw line so many dang times. Because as a team, they got to the free throw line a good 35 times. Good number. For the Orlando Magic, that 40% 3-ball clip, I like it for them. You don't have to shoot 40% as a team. No one's asking you to be that hyper efficient. Again, league average is 35 to 36% in today's NBA. But you were 29% last year. So can you get to 35, 36, 37% as a team? Well, Game 1 says they have the capability of doing that. Game 1 says Desmond Bane is not only making them more efficient, but he's also making them more aggressive in taking those 3-point shots. So the Desmond Bane effect is working early and often, and I like that. And then from a defensive perspective, that 3-point line is going to be crucial defensively for this Orlando Magic team. Because while they're still trying to find themselves as a shooting squad, being able to keep themselves in games by shutting the water off for teams that want to get up high volume 3-point attempts, that's going to be big for them. And that was a big part of what was able to make it where they won this game. Because this game was close for a really long time on the back of the fact that Norman Powell was just hitting a lot of tough shots, a lot of leaners, a lot of really good mid-range opportunities as well. That's a dynamo scorer right there, and a guy that, not the podcast for, but the LA Clippers are probably going to miss, given the fact that it looks like that Bradley Beal acquisition, at least through one game, ain't cutting it. Last but not least, we'll go ahead and do a quick review. As you guys know, I did Parlay J yesterday, and I did my first official 3-leg pick for the season on this Orlando Magic versus Miami Heat game, and it went terribly. The game wasn't much closer than I expected. They did not cover the point spread by any means. They won by 4. They needed to win by at least 8. Paolo Banchero needed to score 26 points. He finished with 24. And Desmond Bane needed to hit 4 threes. He hit 3. So, and he had hit 2 in the first half, which made me feel like from the law of averages that I should have got my 4 3-pointers made. But it didn't land, and unfortunately, again, Paolo Banchero was literally 1 basket away, or dare I say, the 3 free throw attempts he missed, thanks Paolo, away from being able to make this one clear. So that one sucks. We're 0-3 in terms of our leg picks so far. The Orlando Magic, obviously, get the dub, and that's what matters the most. Next up for the Orlando Magic, they play the Atlanta Hawks on Friday. That'll be when my next Parlay J drops. I will end up doing that on that morning's episode, so you'll be able to check that out, put the parlay in. As I've said before, all of these parlays will be quote-unquote powered by FanDuel. That's the app I'm using, at least, to put them together. No sponsorship, but shout out to you guys. If you guys want to make a call, you guys can call our phone over here at FanArch. But nonetheless, going to be using FanDuel to kind of power these parlays, and I'll be doing this for every single game, right? So even even the Chicago Bulls game on Saturday, I might drop a little quick episode after the Hawks game that can also help, with dropping, my thoughts both on the Atlanta Hawks game as well as giving another parlay for over the weekend. So there's that. But with all that being said, this has been another edition of the Magic Latest Podcast. Magic are 1-0 through the first game of the season, set the tone at home, and they've got 2 more home games left before. They got 2 straight home games before having to go on the road against the Philadelphia 76ers. one game at a time, though. With all that being said, again, remember to like, comment, subscribe. This has been another edition of Magic Latest Podcast. Hit that post notification bell so you always know when we're dropping new videos. And until tomorrow, peace.